Okay, so today we're going to dive into a really chilling case study. We're heading to the remote village of Bairavpur to unpack a story that starts with a creepy, abandoned mansion and ends with a question about what fear really is.
So, picture this. A village totally cut off from everything, Bairavpur. At its heart is this dilapidated old mansion, a haveli, that everyone is terrified of. The locals, they won't even walk past it. They say they hear things, strange sounds, like someone is walking right beside them, even when no one's there. And that's where our mystery begins.
You know, what's gripping this village is so much more than a simple ghost story. It's this shared terror, this collective experience that no one can really explain. We're going to dissect this legend and try to understand the fear of this unseen presence that's taken hold of the entire village. Now, the absolute core of this terror comes down to one specific sound. It's known as the aahat. That's aahat. In its simplest form, the word just means the sound of a footstep, a soft noise, a hint that someone's there. But in Bairavpur, it means something way more sinister. It's the sound that tells you you're not alone anymore.
A legend like this is only as powerful as the stories that feed it, right? So to really get the aha, we have to hear from the people who actually experienced it, the people whose lives were completely changed by just a sound.
So our first story comes from a woman named Rena. Now, she wasn't from the village. She was just visiting, and she was, full of that bravado. Her friends were teasing her, calling her fearless. So on a dare, she decides she's going to be the one to challenge the legend. She's going to walk into the haveli, alone.
Okay, so imagine this. She's inside, and the darkness is just thick. All she has is her flashlight, and she sees her own shadow dancing on these decaying walls. But then she sees another one, a second shadow moving right beside hers. She calls out, "Hello?" Nothing. Just the soft, unmistakable sound of footsteps getting closer. The aha. In that moment, all her bravery just vanished, and she ran. She was a believer now.
Next up, we've got the case of Raghu, the village barber. What's interesting is his encounter didn't even happen in the haveli. It was late one night, on this lonely path near a pond. He's walking home, and then he hears it, that same distinct sound of someone walking right behind him.
So he starts walking faster, but the footsteps just match his pace. Then all of a sudden, this white shadowy figure just materializes in front of him. Its eyes were glowing this eerie green. And it speaks to him. It says, "Raghu, your time has come." Well, that encounter just shattered him. The next day, the villagers found him, completely driven mad, just repeating over and over, "The aahat will take me."
Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds like superstition, just preying on people who are already scared. But what about a man of logic? Enter Anirudh, the village schoolmaster. He thought all these ghost stories were complete nonsense, but even he, the ultimate skeptic, wasn't immune to the aahat.
Anirudh is walking past a haveli one night, and he hears the heavy footsteps behind him. He spins around, sees nothing, and tries to explain it away. But then, the haunting changes. A voice, with no body, whispers right into his ear. This is a huge deal, because the terror isn't just some distant sound anymore. Now, it's intimate, it's personal.
And from there, the whole thing just escalated. It got more aggressive. It got more widespread. It wasn't just about that crumbling haveli anymore. A woman named Savita saw an apparition in her own yard. Mohan saw a warning literally materialize in blood on the mansion wall. A bus driver, Amar, saw a ghostly passenger on his totally empty late-night bus. Even a cop, DCP Arvind, who was sent to debunk all the hysteria, felt an icy cold hand on his shoulder inside the mansion. The aahat was absolutely everywhere.
So fear is at an all-time high. The entire village is basically being held hostage by this invisible force. A small group finally decides, you know what, we can't live like this. Led by Rena, who is now a firm believer, and joined by the skeptic-turned-believer Anirudh and the police officer Arvind, they decide they have to find the source of the aahat once and for all.
Of course, they chose to go back to the haveli at midnight, the darkest hour. They're navigating through these crumbling ruins, and then they find it. A rusted old iron door leading down to a basement. They take a deep breath, shove it open, and just descend into this cold, damp darkness, heading straight into the heart of the legend.
Okay, so down in that cold, damp basement, surrounded by the smell of decay and this oppressive silence, this is where it all comes to a head. This is where the real story behind the footsteps is finally going to be uncovered.
The very first thing their flashlights land on is a message scrawled on the wall, and it looks like it was written in dried blood. This wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration. The aahat wasn't a ghost, it was a curse, and to hear it was to be marked for death.
And then, a faint, ghostly voice just filled the room, kind of echoing in their minds. It told them the truth. The presence was a woman named Lolita, the original mistress of the house. 100 years ago, her greedy husband buried her alive right here in this basement. Her last screams, her final footsteps trying to escape, they all echoed through the earth and became a curse that would never, ever fade.
But here's the thing. Solving the mystery didn't bring them any safety. Lolita's spirit made it terrifyingly clear. She said, "My curse is eternal. Even those who know the truth cannot escape the aahat." They hadn't found a solution, they had just become the next targets.
So completely panicked, the group scrambles out of the basement. The aahat is now echoing from every single direction. They have the answer, but now the curse knows they know. They have one last, desperate idea to try and end it.
In this moment of just sheer desperation, they decide to burn the Haveli to the ground. They're hoping that cremating Lalita's remains will finally set her spirit free. And for a few days, it actually seemed to work. The village was quiet, the nights were peaceful, they really thought they had won. But the reality was something else entirely. The truly horrifying conclusion came a few nights later. Rena is in her room, studying, miles away from the ashes of the Haveli, and she hears it. A soft, familiar sound coming from the corner of her room. Footsteps. The aahat was back. The haunting was never tied to the house. It was tied to the people who heard it.
This just completely redefines the aahat, doesn't it? It's not a ghost haunting a place, it's an idea, a curse that literally latches onto a person. It is, as one source put it, a blind shadow that follows you everywhere. It's a fear that, once you hear it, you can never unhear it.
And that leaves us with this final question to think about. I mean, the mystery of the Haveli was solved, but the terror is still out there. Was the aahat really the spirit of Lolita? Or did her tragic story just give a name to a primal kind of fear that, once it gets its hooks in you, never truly lets go? The story seems to suggest that sometimes knowing the truth doesn't save you at all. It just tells you the name of your ghost.